Hello everyone, Loremaster Sotek here with another video, and I'm going to go ahead and apologize in advance if you hear any weird squeaking noises. That is my dog, Sadie, enjoying her new boar toy that squeaks when she bites it. But in any event, so yesterday, we spoke at length about how various races may not make the cut for Total War Warhammer unless a system of smaller race packs can be done which will allow them to appear in all their assorted glory. I think there's a pretty reasonable chance that factions like the Hobgoblin Khanate and Nippon will only exist within this mini race form, if at all. But what about those factions who are even smaller? There are numerous groups within Warhammer Fantasy who would make for fantastic units, but aren't known for ever going to war in mass, mainly due to a lack of numbers. So, if they never appear on the scale needed to viably participate in the wars for the Warhammer world on their own, then how best to bring them to the table? Well, the answer for this is already in the game. The solution to our struggle is to unleash the full potential of the mercenary system. But real quick, speaking of mercenary work, have you been enjoying the Total War Warhammer games? I assume so, hence why you're watching this. In any event, if you're missing any of the games or content that you'd like to add to further your option of Immortal Empires campaigns, why not pick them up over on Fanatical? Every single Total War Warhammer product is roughly 20% off, but you don't just have to look at the Total War games. There are an insane amount of games on here for sale, often better than you'll find on Steam or anywhere else. Doesn't matter which game you buy, if you use the link below, you'll save some money and it'll help support what I do here on the channel. So consider it if you're looking to pick up some new games, whether Warhammer or otherwise. Anyway, enough shilling and back to Mercenary Halflings. Mercenaries, I hear you cry. How would Mercenaries make sense for this? Well, allow me to explain a bit. There are numerous factions present within the Warhammer world who I think would be delightful to see appear, but they just don't have nearly enough of an impact on the setting to justify an entire playable faction. Perhaps they're too small, having a population barely large enough to occupy a singular city like the Amazons of Lustria. Or maybe the race has precious few fighters that really don't have a place in any particular roster, kind of like the Druids of Albion. It could be a situation in the case of the Halflings, who are at best able to supplement allied armies, but would never be able to threaten another in any realistic fashion on their own. This is where the mercenary system can salvage these precious little beings into something wondrous. Imagine, if you will, that you're playing an Empire campaign, let's say Balthazar Gelt, for example. Upon claiming the moot for yourself, you gain access to the Mercenary tab, just like you would if wandering in range of an ogre camp. From here, you would be able to choose from a selection of halfling units that are eager to join forces with you. Perhaps choosing between units of halfling slingers, halfling badger riders, and a halfling hot pot catapult. So you're able to secure some of these units to join your army, probably limited to a maximum of 4 or so slots if it functions at all like the Alliance system. These units would remain with you until their destruction or disbandment, unlike the Ogre Mercenaries, who leave if you declare war on the faction that you recruited them from. Now, whether these units would all be available immediately, or whether they'd require you to build a unique building is an interesting thing to consider. Do the Halflings immediately sign up with you, or do you need to prove yourself to them by building that unique structure? Perhaps at Tier 1, this building grants recruitment of halfling slingers. Then at Tier 2, it grants access to the terrifying badger riders, which are exactly what they sound like, but only better. Then finally, at Tier 3, the player can recruit the hot pot war machines to rain boiling soup down upon enemies. And these buildings could also give further bonuses as well. This would heavily incentivize players to focus on conquering specific regions, which could have little symbols on them indicating that mercenaries are available here, which would add so much more fun and life to the campaign map and really make you consider about where you're conquering instead of just collecting all the different provinces, but making you go, oh man, I could go this direction, but if I go this other way that might be more difficult, I could get to this really exciting batch of mercenaries. Furthermore, by using the unique buildings to lock away the units, this could make it easier to lock certain mercenaries to particular factions if that's a desired trait of the system. Should halflings be willing to fight for the vampire counts or other evil races? Or would they only agree to fight alongside those like humans, non-dark elves, and dwarfs, for instance? This could be a great flavor thing. It would be very important to ensure, though, that there are a relatively equal number of mercenaries for the various allegiances found across the world if we do decide to split them based on, good or evil or neutral or whatever. To continue on this particular line of thought, this could also allow certain mercenary factions to have one or two heroes that they offer to owning players. For instance, if the Amazons are recruited by owning the Temple of Kara, or preferably Amazon Island, if we could get that made into an actual settlement, unlike right now where it's just kind of it's a zone you can't go to, but it's there. Then on top of the 3 to 4 different Amazon warrior units, we could receive a hero like a Serpent Priestess, who has maybe a unique mix of spells, along with unique abilities to really make her delightful while she's running around kicking ass alongside the Lizardmen or whatever. This could also allow for some fun dynamics among the more neutral mercenary factions. Imagine if when you capture the capital of Albion, depending on if your faction is good or bad, so to speak, you would get access to slight differences. So the various evil factions would get all the Albion warrior units at the lower tiers, with the max tier offering them the infamous Dark Emissary hero. However, the good guys would instead have the Truthsayer hero at the max level. Then, of course, you'd have the purely evil mercenary squads appearing, such as, well, I'm struggling to name or think of a purely bad guy race that isn't playable in some form. I mean, I suppose one could argue hobgoblins, but they're said to be a nation-sized race with titanic numbers that are able to threaten entire chaos hordes passing through their land, so that doesn't sound quite right. I guess you could maybe think Famir, but Famir are technically part of the Norska roster, and they fit well with the themes that the Norska roster kind of flows around, so that doesn't work either. Perhaps the fishmen that dwell beneath the ocean? I guess that could work, but, I would like to see them as their own race because they're such a different thing, but whatever, it doesn't matter, you get the concept. In any event, that's the idea. To go along with these mercenary races, we could also obviously have classic Dogs of War mercenary units showing up for recruitment, like Ruglug's Armored Orcs or Tichihuichi's Raiders, but that's a topic for another video. I'll be back in the coming weeks to focus on all the various mercenary races to really break down what units I think would fit them, explain how they all function, etc., etc. Please do let me know how you feel about this idea. I am reading all of your comments because I genuinely want to know how y'all think about this. I can already see from the mini race DLC video that a pretty decent number of people seem extremely adverse to the concept of accepting anything less than full race DLCs for every possible faction, which, alright, you're certainly entitled to your opinion, but I will warn you that this will only lead to setting yourself up for massive disappointment. Best to aim low and have grounded expectations to then be pleasantly surprised if you get something better than the reverse, in my opinion. That's going to be all for this video. Thank you all for watching. I'll speak with you again soon. And I do want to take a moment to thank all of my patrons over on Patreon. I really appreciate all of the support you guys have been giving me and helping, keep the lights on over here and help me keep things taken care of. If you do want to support the channel, and like any little bit helps, and it's a great way to kind of help me out. But I do just want to thank those guys for their patience and their continuing efforts to help me out. So yeah, thank you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.